Okay, class. For your tutorial, okay, we are going to discuss on chapter 6, okay, which is on circulatory system. Supposedly, you for your class, we are going to discuss for part B, structured question. But for your session kali ni, we will do it a bit different, where I am the one who's going to give you the answers. So if you have question, you can ask. Okay, so we can go through the question one by one, and check your answer lah. Okay, right? So bukan yang macam the usual where you give me the answer. Yang ini kita akan you are going to check whether your answer is correct or not, so that flow tu lebih cepat, right? Okay, so part B, question number 1, it says here, state the precise location in the body where red blood cells are produced. So the answer would be bone marrow. So bone marrow is also the place where the white blood cell will be also produced, and also where platelets originate also, which is fragments or pinch of cells of the bone marrow. Platelets also comes from the bone marrow. The fragments from the cells of the bone marrow will become the platelets. Okay, so the next question, B, atrial pulse can be detected by touch in any artery that runs close to the body surface. Name 2 arteries at which the pulse can be easily detected. Okay, 2 arteries. So dalam nota awak ada banyak artery yang diberikan, kan ada satu slide tu. So you can choose any one, any of the artery, but remember for your exam you cannot refer to your notes, so you have to memorize lah. Okay, so radial artery is the artery in the wrist area here, and then carotid arteries is in the neck region there, and then you have the branchial artery, the one that you detect to do your blood pressure yang kita tengok lecture hari tu, and then all the different arteries in this slide you can list down. Okay, it's in this slide. Okay, so all these arteries you can list down. Okay, any of these artery, temporal artery, facial artery, femoral artery, okay, popliteal artery, and all these arteries you can list down. So it only wants 2 of the arteries. Okay, so next, it says here, figure 5 shows 2 blood vessels that are located to each other. So ini macam punya lab report, lab hari tu lah kan, where you are given a diagram of prepared slides of which you have to identify which one is the artery, which one is the vein. So in this case, identify the artery with a line labeled A and the vein with a line labeled B in the above figure. So you just stick your ruler, okay, and then label the diagram. Okay, A dengan B je. So macam ni, macam yang saya dah buat lah ni kan. So if you were to, for example, to be extra vigilant, extra rajin, awak buat macam ni, vein kan. Kalau awak buat macam tu, vein, ini awak ejak artery, the examiner might give you a cross there. Sebab apa? You are not answering according to what the question wants. Dia nak awak label A dengan B je. So you label A dengan B. Okay, so please read the question carefully. So macam ni lah. So B, ini A. So read the question really carefully of what the question wants you to answer. Okay, so next, give 1 distinct characteristics of the artery shown in figure 5 which allows easy identification. Macam nak tahu itu artery, itu vein kan? So you look at the diameter, okay, the lumen, the size of the lumen. So if the blood vessels has smaller lumen, so that would be the artery, and the wall of the artery should be thicker, because why is it that the artery wall is thicker? Because the blood that flows in the artery, it flows with high blood pressure. Okay, so the thick wall will protect the the wall of the artery. Okay, thicker wall for the artery. Vein has a thinner wall because the blood flows with low blood pressure and low velocity as well. Okay. Thicker lagi satu sebab apa? Sebab kalau untuk artery dia punya Tunica Media yang ada smooth muscle is thicker lah. Right? So that's why you can hear the pulse. Bukan hear, you can feel the pulse. Okay. Because due to the pressure exerted against the blood pressure exerted against the wall of the artery that causes the pulse. Okay. And then, okay, next, number 3, arteries are composed of tunica intima, the inner layer, which made up of endothelium. Okay, the tunica media, which is made up of smooth muscle. Okay, that allows the blood vessels to vasoconstrict and also vasodilate. Vasoconstrict, vasodilate. And then the outer layer is the tunica adventitia. Okay, so you have to know all the 3 layers, you have to know all the components of the 3 layers, you have to know the function of these 3 layers. Okay, so for tunica media, it is the inner layer. Tunica intima, inner layer ada pada ketiga-tiga blood vessels, artery, vein and also blood capillaries. Okay, so for blood capillaries, endothelium is sama juga untuk artery and vein. It is surrounded by basal lamina. Okay, endothelium and then basal lamina, lepas tu baru ada tunica media. And outside you have the tunica adventitia. Okay, so for endothelium provides a smooth surface. Kenapa smooth surface? So that the blood can flows with minimum resistance. Okay, with minimum resistance. So the feature of the endothelium, it provides a smooth surface for the blood to flow to minimize resistance. Okay, so for the tunica media, because it is made up of smooth muscle, so this is to regulate blood flow by constricting and relaxing the smooth muscle. Okay, vasoconstriction and vasodilation. So this will create the blood pressure against the wall of the artery will create the pulse. Okay, and then tunica adventitia, you have the elastic fibers and also collagen, allows vessel to, kalau function elastic fibers is to allow vessels to stretch and recoil to maintain blood pressure and also withstand high blood pressure. Dia related lah kan. So elastic fibers, if you look at your notes, sebenarnya elastic fibers ni dia dekat tunica media. Kalau awak tengok nota awak lah. Sebab itulah tadi saya macam cakap dia relate tu tadi kan. Okay. Tunica media dalam note awak, smooth muscle and elastic fiber. Okay, so the smooth muscle allow the vessel to constrict and dilate to regulate blood flows. And the elastic fibers allows blood vessels to stretch and recoil. Okay, stretch and also recoil to maintain blood pressure. Okay, kalau macam tunica adventitia, baru dia ada collagen and also connective tissues. So the function of the collagen is to make the wall of the blood vessel strong and durable. Okay, provide strength. Okay, strong and durable. So these are the answers that you can include in your that you can check with your answer. Okay, D. Okay, so it says here contraction of ventricle begins from the base upwards. Saya dah cakap hari tu kan, base of the heart is the apex of the heart. Okay, apex of the heart. Okay, as a result of impulse transmission from Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fibers are the fibers surrounding the wall of the ventricle kan. So ventricle. So impulse akan lalu daripada AV node pergi ke bundle of His and then straight to the apex of the heart or base of the heart, then baru dia akan naik along the Purkinje fibers at the wall of the ventricle. So it causes the ventricle to contract from base upward. Kenapa? Okay, explain the significance of these patterns of contraction. So this is because, as I said before, the aorta and also the pulmonary artery is located at the top of the heart. Okay, so this forces the blood into pulmonary artery and also aorta. Okay, forces blood into pulmonary artery and also aorta to allow the blood to exit the heart, or to allow the blood to be pumped out of the heart. Okay, and then impulse spread through the Purkinje fibers, which is at the wall of the of the ventricle. Kan, along the wall of the ventricle you have the Purkinje fibers, so the impulse will travel down and then up, causes the ventricle to contract from base upward. Okay, to push the blood out of the heart, because aorta and pulmonary artery dekat atas. Okay. Okay, so next, the next question is, describe one physical factors that affects human heart rate. Satu je dia nak. Kat dalam nota awak dia bagi 4. Kan, ada 4. So you can state whether the factor can be exercise. You exercising will increase your heart rate. Okay, so exercise increases metabolic rate. So in order to increase metabolic rate, heart rate has to increase. So why? Because the blood, the heart will pump blood more faster, okay, more frequently, so to provide more oxygen, more nutrients, more fuel to the respiring cells. Kan, muscle cell is contracting, so perlu banyak fuel, perlu banyak glucose, perlu banyak oxygen dalam cellular respiration untuk menghasilkan energy. So exercise increases heart rate. And then body temperature increase. Bila awak demam kan, when you have a fever, every 1 degree Celsius increase in body temperature increase the heart rate by 10. Kan, so sepatutnya heart rate awak berapa? 70 berapa beat per minute? 75, 72 kan. So every 1 degrees increase of your body temperature increase the heart rate by 10. Kan, sepatutnya 82 jadi 83 kalau suhu 38 contohnya. Kalau 39 jadi berapa? 90 lebih heart rate. Kalau dah 40 jadi 100. So that's why you don't want your body temperature to increase so much, especially for little children. Okay. And then kalau age, okay, as you age, the heart rate will decrease. Okay. Gender. Okay. Gender. Female have a higher heart rate compared to men. Okay. Sebab tu lelaki maybe dia lebih tenang berbanding dengan perempuan. Good. Okay. Tak cepat gelabah. Alright. So question number 2. Question 2. Figure 6 shows structure of human heart. So you have to know the name of the valve in the heart. Okay, the name of the valve you have to know. Kena ingat, kena hafal. Okay, so the right side of the heart, between the right atrium and the right ventricle, you have the tricuspid valve. Okay, or the AV valve. Paling senang, paling selamat awak jawab AV valve lah kan, ataupun atrioventricular valve. Okay. Kalau L, kita tengok L kat mana? L antara left ventricle and the aorta. Kan, aorta. So that is aortic semilunar valve. Okay, ataupun kalau letak semilunar valve pun diterima. Okay, sebab semilunar valve ni ada dua. Satu antara left ventricle dengan aorta. Satu lagi antara right ventricle dengan apa? Pulmonary. Pulmonary apa ni? What is this? Pulmonary apa? Right ventricle dia pergi ke mana? Aisyah Humaira? Right ventricle dia pergi ke mana? Walaupun saya bagi jawapan, you have to listen and also you have to know the concept. I can randomly pick to ask question. Aisyah Humaira.
Pulmonary artery.
Pulmonary artery pergi ke mana tu? Which circuit? Kalau right ventricle, pergi kepada which circuit? Pulmonary artery, it brings
Pulmonary circuit.
Pulmonary circuit to the lung. Okay, to the lung. Pulmonary artery to the lungs, which is to the pulmonary circuit. Kalau aorta to the systemic circuit. Okay, so daripada left ventricle through through the aorta into the systemic circuit. So antara right ventricle dengan pulmonary artery, you also have semilunar valve. Okay, itu ataupun nama lain dia adalah pulmonary semilunar valve. Okay, kita tengok punya nota. Pulmonary semilunar valve. Kalau kita tak panggil aorta semilunar valve, kalau aorta aortic. Okay, aortic semilunar valve. Okay. So kalau macam untuk antara left ventricle dengan left ventricle dengan left atrium, you have the AV valve juga, tapi nama spesifik dia adalah bicuspid ataupun mitral valve. Okay, so all these 4 valves, you have to know the names, and also you have to know which one close, which one opens during the cardiac cycle. Okay, cardiac cycle ada 3 stage kan, so you have to know which one close, which one opens during the cardiac cycle. Okay, so state the function of the valve, senang je kan, which is prevent the backflow of blood ataupun blood flows in one direction, allows the blood to flow in one direction. Okay, so next question, blood and hemolymph are circulating fluid in the circulatory system. So give 2 difference between blood and also hemolymph. Okay, so blood and hemolymph. Hemolymph are the circulating fluid found in organisms such as insects. Okay, that relies on open circulatory system where you have a mixture between blood and also interstitial fluid. Sebab tu kita panggil dia sebagai hemolymph, kan? Mixture between the blood and also body fluid in organisms such as insects and also mollusks. Okay, kalau blood, it is confined in your blood vessels. Okay, confined. There is no mixture between interstitial fluid and the blood. Okay, so you have to give 2 difference. Tadi saya dah bagi tahu dah, kan? So for blood, it is confined in blood vessels. Kalau hemolymph, it directly bathes, okay, organs and body tissues. Okay, and then kalau blood flows in the closed vessel or continuous blood vessels, kan, daripada heart pergi ke artery, pergi ke blood capillaries, pergi ke vein, balik ke semula heart. So the blood flows in a closed circulatory system. Okay, closed vessels. Tapi kalau hemolymph flows in open-ended vessels, kan, so you have the heart pumping the blood, kan, into open-ended vessels, and then the blood will get mixed with the body fluid to form the hemolymph. Okay, so there for hemolymph, a mix between blood and also interstitial fluid. IF is interstitial fluid. Dalam exam jangan short form IF tu interstitial fluid, you have to write full interstitial fluid. Okay, saya je boleh guna IF ni. Nanti orang confuse, intermittent fasting ke, kan? So interstitial fluid. Okay, so kalau blood, there is no mixture. The blood will not mix with the interstitial fluid, distinct from interstitial fluid. Obviously, blood contains red blood cells or hemoglobin. Kalau hemolymph does not contain any red blood cells, does not contain hemoglobin, tapi dia juga ada pigment, kan? So because the pigment will bind to the oxygen molecule, so that the pigment can bring the oxygen molecule to body cells for exchange. Okay, so the pigment for this organism, we call it as hemocyanin. Okay, hemocyanin. Tak silap saya, kalau hemoglobin kita yang bind kepada oksigen is iron, tapi kalau hemocyanin, it is sulfur, if I'm not mistaken. You can go and check. Okay, sulfur. Okay, so that's why for insects dia punya darah dia tak warna merah. So dia akan warna hijau, warna biru, something like that. Kan? So hemocyanin due to the presence of the sulfur that binds to the oxygen molecule. Okay, so kalau blood found in vertebrates, kan, kalau hemolymph found in insects and also mollusk. Awak squeeze grasshopper, ada keluar fluid warna apa? Kan, dia bukan warna merah dia punya fluid dia. Okay, hijau-hijau macam tu. Okay, so next, number 2. Explain how closed circulatory system benefit large and active mammals. Okay, kalau open circulatory system, the heart pumps the blood into open end blood vessels. So this is for the less active organism, the smaller organism. Tapi for larger organism that have more complex body plan with more organs, kan? So they for this organism they need the closed circulatory system. So why? This is to maintain a high blood pressure. Tadi kita tengok kalau left ventricle, it pumps the blood into the whole body, into the systemic circuit. So it needs a very high pressure to pump the blood throughout the body, okay, to maintain high blood pressure. And this is why? Because to ensure effective delivery of oxygen. Can oxygen, nutrients, exchange of materials throughout the body, okay, and also ensures effective removal of waste of carbon dioxide. Kan? So kalau effective delivery of oxygen, nutrients into the systemic circuit, effective removal of carbon dioxide into the pulmonary circuit. Okay. So and then also efficient flow to maintain constant body temperature. Kan? So constant body temperature for the mammals. But kalau mammals, we are endothermic. Okay, so we have to maintain a constant body temperature. Okay, so next question C. Banyak satu tulisan kat sini if you can look. Okay. So describe how cardiac cycle is coordinated. Okay. Yang ini awak kena baca soalan betul-betul. Soalan tak suruh awak cerita pasal explain how cardiac cycle occurs. Okay, what are the stages of cardiac cycle? Kalau soalan ni awak cerita the 3 stages of the cardiac cycle, atrium, ventricle, diastole memula, kan? Lepas tu ventricle relax, atrium contract. So that is where the question asks you to explain on how cardiac cycle occurs. But this question, it asks you on how the cycle is coordinated. Macam mana ia dikawal? Ia dikawal oleh pergerakan impulse along the wall of the myocardium. Okay, so you have to explain your answer based on conduction system of the heart. So, cuba angkat tangan sikit berapa yang jawab untuk you explaining the stages of cardiac cycle. Ramai kan? Okay. So explain the question. I mean look at the question, what the question wants. So ramai saya angkat tangan. So coordinated, macam mana ia dikawal? Oleh how the impulse is generated and flows through the myocardium. Okay. So first you have to explain. Okay, soalan ni 3 markah kan? So SA node. SA node is the pacemaker. So it is where the impulse is generated. Okay. So the impulse that is generated by the SA node will spread through the atrial wall. Okay, and causes the atria to contract. And then the impulse then reach the AV node. At the AV node, there will be a slight delay. Kenapa a slight delay? To make sure all the blood in the atrium finish contracting, all the blood enters into the ventricle. That is the function of the delay at the AV node. Okay, and then from AV node to the bundle of His, and then bundle branches, and then towards the apex of the heart, and then up and spread through Purkinje fibers, causing the ventricle, both ventricle to contract. So that is coordinated. How the cardiac cycle is coordinated. Okay. Okay, so next, question number 2. Describe the structure of red blood cells and how they ensure the efficiency of oxygen transport. Okay, ini senang je lah. You explain on the structure of red blood cells. So first, it is small biconcave. Kenapa small biconcave? Thinner at the center, thicker at the edge. So this is to increase surface area. Kenapa? What is the benefit of increasing surface area? So that you have more oxygen, more surface area for oxygen to diffuse in. So this increases the rate of oxygen diffusion into the red blood cells. Kan? So more surface area, more oxygen diffuse into the blood. Okay, more increase the rate. Okay, increase the rate of oxygen diffuse into the red blood cells across the plasma membrane of the red blood cells. And then the red blood cell will not have any nuclei. Tak ada nucleus. So this increase more space for the presence of more hemoglobin. In one red blood cells, there is about 250 million hemoglobin. Okay, bukan satu red blood cell, satu hemoglobin. So in one red blood cell, it contains millions of hemoglobins. One hemoglobin can bind to 4 oxygen molecules. So imagine how many oxygen molecule can one red blood cell brings, okay, or carry. And it also have no mitochondria, kan? So every cell kena hidup lah. Untuk dia hidup, dia kena generate ATP, kan? So because red blood cell will have no mitochondria. Mitochondria, as you know, it is the place for cellular respiration. Cellular respiration, in order to generate ATP, dia perlukan oksigen. Kalau red blood cells tu guna oksigen yang dia carry untuk cellular respiration, it reduces the amount of oxygen carried by the red blood cells. So instead, the red blood cell will respire through anaerobic respiration, supaya dia tak guna oksigen yang dia bawa. Okay, So that is the characteristics, the structure, okay, the structure of red blood cells to ensure efficient oxygen transport. Biconcave, no nucleus, no mitochondria. Okay, and the explanation. Kalau awak tengok kat sini, describe the structure and how they ensure. So maksudnya, awak bagi structure dia, then you kena explain. Awak tak boleh bagi, okay, small biconcave, no nucleus, without explanation. Itu akan menyebabkan awak tak ada markah, kan? Feature and explanation, 1 mark. Feature and explanation, 1 mark. Kalau bagi feature saja without explanation, no mark. Sebab dia suruh and. Nampak? Dan. Structure dan macam mana structure tu contribute kepada efficiency of oxygen transport. Okay. Okay, so next question D. Decrease in blood pH causes increase in heart rate. Okay, explain the situation. Decrease in blood pH berlaku masa bila? When your body, when a cell is respiring, body cell produces so much of the of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is in your body fluid, react with water to form carbonic acid. Okay, carbonic acid. So carbonic acid, ada acid lah, H+ released into your body fluid causes the body fluid pH to drop, decrease. Okay, decrease. Okay, so blood pH decrease, which is acidic, indicating high level of oxygen. High level of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide dengan air jadi carbonic acid. Okay, carbonic acid. So the presence of the high concentration of hydrogen ion in your body fluid is detected by chemoreceptor. Okay, chemoreceptor in the medulla, if I'm not mistaken. Chemoreceptor. Okay. And then it is send the impulse to the cardiac accelerator in the medulla. Okay, and then apa ni? This is to increase heart rate. Okay, so detected by the high concentration of hydrogen ion detected by chemoreceptor send the impulse at the cardiac accelerator in the medulla and increases the heart rate. Okay. The SA node also increase. The SA node then increase the heart rate. So when heart rate increases, pump more blood lah, can pump more blood. So when more blood is pumped, so this will speed up the delivery of carbon dioxide to the lung, can to remove the carbon dioxide, and also the delivery of oxygen to the body tissues, okay, to the body tissue that is respiring actively, okay. Okay, so kalau if you have question, you can ask. Okay, we try to look at the question together. Okay, next question E. Anemia, okay, is commonly caused by low number of healthy red blood cells. Suggests how iron deficiency leads to anemia. Okay, iron, you know that inside your red blood cell, it contains hemoglobin. Okay, hemoglobin, it consists of 4 polypeptide chain. Okay, 4 polypeptide chain, and in this 4 subunits of hemoglobin, setiap satunya akan ada hem group. Dalam hem group tu akan ada iron. The function of the iron is to bind to oxygen molecule. Okay, so iron is needed to form hemoglobin. Kan, hemoglobin ada 4 subunit. Dalam tu ada iron. Okay, ada iron, ada hem group that has iron. So if there's less iron, iron deficiency. Okay, if there's less iron deficiency, so less hemoglobin will be in the red blood cell. Okay, so this decreases the production of red blood cells, and less oxygen can be carried by the red blood cell. Soalan ni satu markah je, kan? So if you just write suggest how iron deficiency leads to anemia. Kalau tulis kat sini pun boleh juga, kan? Less production of red blood cell, ataupun less hemoglobin in the red blood cell, ataupun less oxygen can be carried by the red blood cell pun boleh juga. Ataupun if you say iron is needed to form hemoglobin, is also accepted. Okay, any of the points. Okay, any of the point will give you 1 mark. Okay, so next, question 3. A. State one function of vertebrate circulatory system. Ni kalau tengok dalam lesson note yang dia bagi brainstorm tu kan. So circulatory system, it is related to the immune system, it is related to the digestive system, it is related to the hormones kan. Okay, so digestive system is to transport nutrients kan. Respiratory system to transport respiratory gas, oxygen, carbon dioxide. Excretory system to remove waste. Okay, hormone regulation to distribute hormone throughout the body from the endocrine glands, okay, to the target cell. And then also in homeostasis, also to maintain fluid balance, okay, and also to maintain body temperature, defend the body against pathogen in the immune system. So the circulatory system will affect all the other system of the body. Okay. Alright, so next, question B. Explain how the structure of hemoglobin is adapted for oxygen transport in our body. Soalan ni, soalan B ni adalah pemahaman. Hafal, boleh terus letak pada jawapan. Soalan yang E ni adalah soalan applied. Daripada kefahaman awak pasal hemoglobin, ada heparum semua, dia bagi satu problem. Ini soalan applied. Yang soalan E ni, soalan applied kepada kefahaman tentang hemoglobin. Okay. So explain how the structure of hemoglobin is adapted for oxygen transport in our body. So tadi saya dah explain hemoglobin is made up of 4 subunit. Each subunit tu has 4 polypeptide chain. Okay. How structure of hemoglobin is adapted. Okay, so 4 polypeptide chain. So each of the polypeptide chain, each of the subunit has a hem group. Okay, hem group that consists of ferrum, okay, or iron. So the function of the ferrum or the iron is to bind to the oxygen molecule. So therefore, one hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecule. Okay, so explain how the structure of hemoglobin is adapted for oxygen transport. So dua markah. First, maybe awak boleh cerita kalau nak relatekan dia kan, so structure dia ada 4 polypeptide kan, that has that has ferrum to bind to oxygen. Okay, so dapatlah 2 markah kat situ. 3 markah actually, 3 point kat situ. Okay, so you sebenarnya satu ayat tu dah boleh dapat awak the full 2 marks. Okay. Okay, so next, see, give one advantage of double circulation in circulatory system in mammals. Double circulation apa? Okay, the first pumping of the heart will pump the blood to the pulmonary circuit, to the lung for gaseous exchange, from oxygen poor blood jadi oxygen rich blood, back to the heart and repressurize the blood so that the high pressure of blood can distribute the blood throughout the body in the systemic circuit to repressurize, okay, to repressurize the blood coming from the pulmonary circuit before it enters into the systemic circuit. So another advantage adalah to separate, okay, oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. There's separation. So oxygen poor blood will not get mixed with oxygen rich blood. Sebab dia akan asingkan, satu pergi kat pulmonary circuit ke lung, satu pergi ke systemic circuit throughout the body. Okay. So the purpose is to repressurize the blood. Okay. Repressurize the blood or maintain blood pressure. And then provide a vigorous blood flow to the body organs in the systemic circuit, and this therefore to allow efficient transport of nutrients and also respiratory gas. Kan? So ini ada banyak point, you just choose one. Okay, so one advantage yang paling obvious sebenarnya yang ini. The heart repressurizes the blood. Itu yang paling penting. Sebab kalau kita tengok dekat ikan is single circulation. Okay, the heart pumps the blood into the gills. Kan? So gills has many gills capillary. So once the blood enters into the gills capillary, so the blood velocity and also the blood pressure will be reduced once it enters into the systemic circuit. Daripada gills capillary terus pergi ke systemic circuit. So that is for fish. Fish tak seaktif mammals. Kan? So that's why mammals requires double circulation. Okay. Okay, so soalan di ni sama dengan soalan tadi where you have to identify the valve, kan? So Q adalah AV valve ataupun mitral valve, bicuspid valve pun accepted. R adalah aortic semilunar valve ataupun semilunar valve is also accepted. Okay. Okay, so next question, state the function of valve R. R apa tadi? Aortic semilunar valve. Sama je macam soalan tadi. Prevent the backflow of blood and keep the blood flow in one direction. Okay. So explain why the wall of the left ventricle is thicker than the right. Saya dah cakap kan, the left side of the heart, it contains oxygen rich blood. Okay, from the right atrium to the right ventricle, it receives blood coming from the lungs. Okay, coming from the lungs. So now the left ventricle is thicker because it needs to pump the blood out of the heart to enter into the long circuit of systemic circuit too. So that's why the left ventricle is thicker to make sure that when the ventricle contract, it produces a higher pressure. Okay, a higher pressure to pump the blood throughout the body in the systemic circuit. Okay. So next, figure 8 shows a human lymphatic system. So ini awak kena identify kalau J itu apa. J itu if you look at the blood capillaries are continuous. Okay, from the arterioles and then enters into the J. J is blood capillaries. Okay, and then join to the venules. Okay, venules and then veins. Okay. So the continuous, so that is blood capillaries. Kalau K, awak tengok dia ada open end. Okay, open end. So ini bukan dalam open circulatory system, still closed, tapi ini adalah lymph capillaries of the lymphatic system. Okay, lymph capillaries. Lymph capillaries are not continuous. It has open end. Open end kenapa? The function of the lymph capillaries is to collect, okay, excessive fluid in the tissue, kan? So blood that flows in the arterioles at the arterial end, blood flows with high blood pressure. So this causes fluid from the blood to exit the blood capillaries, forming tissue fluid, interstitial fluid. So darah akan sentiasa mengalir, interstitial fluid akan sentiasa terbentuk. So you don't want an accumulation of excessive interstitial fluid in your body tissue. This could lead to edema, kan? So this excessive interstitial fluid, dia boleh masuk balik ke dalam awak punya blood circulation through two mechanism. Satu through the lymphatic system, okay, by entering into the lymph capillaries. Satu lagi, the fluid enters into the blood capillaries at the venule ends. So ada dua cara lah. Enters at the venule end of blood capillaries, and also it enters into the lymphatic capillaries of the lymphatic system. Nanti kalau dia masuk dekat lymph capillaries, kan? So dia akan it forms lymph. So kita tak panggil dia interstitial fluid dah, kita panggil dia sebagai lymph. Okay. So the lymph then will enter back to your blood circulation at the shoulder area. Dia akan join dekat right and left subclavian vein tu. Okay, right? Okay, so name the type of cell that forms the wall of J and K. Sebab dua-dua adalah capillaries, okay, blood capillaries and also lymph capillaries. Okay, so feature of capillaries, it has to be really thin, one cell thick. Okay, so both are made up of endothelial cell, or endothelium, or epithelial cell, or simple squamous cell pun boleh. Ni kalau awak ingat lagi lah, kalau belajar daripada sem lepas. Okay. Okay, cuma feature of lymph capillaries, dia ada slits, kan, untuk interstitial fluid masuk. Susunan epithelial cells of lymphatic capillaries, dia ada gap between the cell slits, so that the interstitial fluid can enter to form the lymph. Okay, and itulah. Okay. Question 3, give two difference, okay, between fluid that flows in J and K. Kalau J adalah blood capillaries, so obviously it contains blood. Kalau K adalah lymph capillaries, obviously it contains lymph. So you have to give the difference between blood and lymph actually. Okay, so blood contains red blood cells. Lymph does not contain any red blood cells. Kalau blood, part of the circulatory system, K is part of the lymphatic system. Kalau blood consists of more protein, okay, it consists of more protein, and then the flow of the blood is faster compared to the flow of lymph, which is slower, kan? Sebab awak tengok awak punya nota tu, kan, dia ada the flow of the lymph. Ini, kan? Okay, so from the highest to the lowest. Okay, so once it forms the lymph in the lymphatic system tu, so the flow of the lymph will be slow. Okay, flow of the lymph slow with low pressure. Okay, lower pressure in the lymph, higher pressure in the blood. So kalau blood, it clots quickly, tapi kalau lymph, it clots slowly. Kalau blood, it carries more oxygen lah, obviously, sebab ada red blood cells, ada hemoglobin, kan, to bind with the oxygen. Kalau lymph carries less oxygen. Okay. Okay, so plasma, the right, the cellular element is like the plasma moves quickly blood. And as for the cellular elements, it has the platelets. So here, okay, you have the platelets, and then the rest of it, or the rest of the cellular elements, red blood cells on the erythrocyte. Okay, so for the next question, figure 9 shows the relationship between of J and K and blood pressure in blood vessels. Starts from the aorta, and then you have the arteries, arterioles, blood capillaries, and then blood capillaries in the vein, and back to the heart. Okay, to the venous graph. Right. Okay, so you have these 3 graphs that explain 3 factors. The total cross-sectional area of blood vessels. Okay, so J is total cross-sectional area of blood vessels. So obviously the aorta will have the lowest total cross-sectional area, and then the total cross-sectional area will increase as the blood vessels branches into more arteries, and then more arterioles, and then into capillary beds. Okay, so K is blood, the velocity, the velocity of the blood. Okay, so the blood vessels with the lowest total cross-sectional area will allow the blood to flow with high velocity. Darah akan mengalir dengan laju dalam salur darah yang lebih yang total cross-sectional area dia rendah. Okay, so therefore when the blood flows with high velocity in a lumen of vessels that is small, so the blood pressure will be high. It will be high. So as you can see in the graph that shows the pressure of the blood in the blood vessels, so starting from aorta and then arteries and then arterioles, you can see the pressure will have a peak and then drop, a peak and then drop. So the peak indicates the systolic pressure, the pressure produced when the ventricle contracts. Okay, and then after ventricle contracts, obviously the ventricle will then relax or diastole. Okay, so the bottom graph, the graph here, okay, indicates, the graph that drops indicate the diastolic pressure. Okay, the diastolic pressure. So systolic, diastolic, systolic and diastolic. Ventricle contract and then relax. Ventricle contract and then relax. Contract to push the blood out of the heart into the blood vessels, into the aorta and then into the arteries and then into the arterioles. Okay. As the blood enters into all these blood vessels, the pressure will reduce as the blood moves far away from the heart. Okay. So you have to know how to relate these 3 factors. Okay, the total cross-sectional area for J, the velocity of the blood for K, and then the blood pressure. Okay, the blood pressure of the blood in the different blood vessels. So as you can see, the blood capillaries, okay, will have the largest total cross-sectional area. So therefore, the velocity of the blood that flows in the blood capillaries will be very slow. Okay, so the blood has to flow with low velocity as the blood flows in the capillaries to make sure that there's efficient exchange of materials between the blood and also the tissue, the cells. Okay, the cells. So so the blood has to flow slow so that it makes sure that efficient exchange of material can occur. Kalau darah tu mengalir dengan laju, macam mana exchange of material nak berlaku dengan efektif, okay, dengan efficient. Okay. So basically you have to know how to relate these three factors. Okay. So the next question, number 2, relate K, J and K. J is total cross-sectional area, K is velocity, to the changes in blood pressure as blood flows away from the heart. Okay. So J is total cross-sectional area, K is velocity. So you have to relate with the blood pressure as I've mentioned earlier. Okay. So basically the question is worth 2 marks. Okay. So how to relate velocity and total cross-sectional area with blood pressure? So if you observe in the graph, so let me just delete this. Okay. Blood pressure is the greatest in the aorta. Okay, in the aorta. So because the blood is just pumped out from the heart, okay, by the ventricle. So obviously the blood pressure is greatest in the aorta, and the aorta, if you observe in the graph, okay, for the total cross-sectional area, aorta has the smallest total cross-sectional area. Okay, so the aorta has the smallest total cross-sectional area, so therefore the blood pressure is high. Okay, it's the highest compared to the arteries and then arterioles. Okay, so arteries and arterioles, the total cross-sectional area will increase as the artery and arterioles branches even more. Okay, and then okay, so therefore as the blood flows with high blood pressure in the aorta and then into the arteries and then into the arterioles, so therefore the velocity of the blood is high. Okay, so high blood pressure causes the velocity of the blood to be high. Okay, increase in velocity. But as you can see from the graph, the velocity of the blood that flows in the blood vessels in the aorta and then arteries and then arterioles and then into the blood capillaries, as you can see, the velocity initially the velocity is high. Okay, but as the blood flows into the arteries and then arterioles, and then into the blood capillaries, the velocity will drop. Okay, as the total cross-sectional area increase, and so therefore the blood pressure will also decrease. Okay. So this is the answer. So you should be able to relate, okay, total cross-sectional area with the velocity of the blood and with the blood pressure, okay, in the different blood vessels, okay, in the aorta, artery, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins, and also later return back to the heart through the vena cava. Okay, so the next question, C. Figure 10 shows Iskandar cardiac cycle. Okay, so in this diagram, okay, you should be able to explain the stages of the cardiac cycle. So cardiac cycle has 3 stages. Okay, the first stage is atrial and ventricular systole. So it means that all the 4 chambers of the heart is relaxed. Okay, it's relaxed where the heart chambers needs to collect blood. Okay, in these 4 heart chambers. Okay, so all the chambers of the heart is relaxed. Okay, relaxed, so all the blood can enter into all these 4 chambers of the heart, the 2 atria and the 2 ventricles. So the duration is 0.4 seconds. So during this time, the AV valve is open. Okay, the AV valve is open to allow the blood from the atria to enter into the ventricle. Okay, and at this time also the semilunar valve is closed. Okay, so that the blood can be collected in the ventricle chamber. Okay, so semilunar valve has to be closed during the first stage. During the second stage, okay, is when the atrial systole, ventricle relax. So this is it takes about 0.1 second. So the atria at this stage, at the second stage, will contract and to push all the blood in the atria into the ventricle. Okay, all the blood in the atria push into the ventricle. So at this point, the semilunar valve still remain closed. Okay, sebab dia nak kumpulkan darah tu still in the ventricle, but and also the AV valve will also remain open. Kan, sebab nak push all the blood into the ventricle, so obviously the AV valve has to remain open. Okay, so so that is the second stage. The third stage, okay, so semua darah dah ada dalam ventricle, so sekarang ni the ventricle needs to contract. Okay, so this is the third stage, ventricular systole. Okay, ventricular systole. So at this point, okay, the semilunar valve obviously needs to be open. Sebab apa? Bila ventricle dah contract, obviously darah dalam ventricle tu kena dikeluarkan, kan? Keluarkan melalui either the aorta into the systemic circuit or the pulmonary artery to the pulmonary circuit. Okay, so semilunar valve open, and at this point, at the third stage, AV valve closed. Kan, AV valve will need to be closed. Then close, supaya bila ventricle to contract, darah it's not pushed back into the atrium, walaupun ada walaupun dah ada valve tu lah, kan. So AV valve needs to be closed, so that to make sure that when the ventricle contract, the pressure is exerted to the blood, so that the blood is pumped out of the heart. Okay. So these are the stages of the cardiac cycle. So the total duration of the cardiac cycle is 0.8. Cardiac cycle indicates one heartbeat. Okay, one heartbeat. Okay, satu cardiac cycle adalah satu heartbeat. Okay, so you know that for a normal healthy person, okay, the heart rate is 75 beats per minute. So from the information given, 0.8 second, kan, 0.8 mana datang pada 0.4 sampai 0.1 sampai 0.3. So total for a complete cardiac cycle takes about 0.8 second. Okay, so 0.8 from there you actually, kan, sebenarnya you could just count your heartbeat, your heart rate, by placing your two fingers, okay, your the two index fingers on the radial artery, okay, to count your heart rate. Heart rate is the same as pulse rate. So for a normal healthy person, it is 75 beats per minute. Okay. Okay. And then for the second question, what is meant by stroke volume? Okay. So stroke volume is the volume of the blood pumped by a ventricle in a single contraction. Okay. So that is the volume of the that is the stroke volume. Okay. Berapa jumlah darah yang dipump keluar daripada ventricle dalam satu in a single contraction. Okay. So normally the amount is if you refer to your notes, okay, if you refer to your notes, stroke volume is 70 milliliter per beat. Okay, that is the stroke volume. Okay, so based on the above question, calculate Iskandar's stroke volume if his cardiac output is 5,325 milliliter. Okay, so this is the formula that you have to remember. Cardiac output equals, okay, stroke volume times heart rate. Okay, so therefore, when you want to determine the stroke volume, so cardiac output divided by heart rate. So 5,325 milliliter of blood pump per minute, okay, divided by 75 beat per minute. So this gives 71 milliliter per beat. Okay, per beat. Okay, so for the next question, Figure 11 shows part of a capillary surrounded by tissue fluid. The values of blood pressure in capillary and osmotic pressure in the tissue fluid are provided. Okay, untuk soalan ni, you have to take note of the two different pressure. The blood pressure in the blood vessels, and then the osmotic pressure in the tissue fluid. Okay, osmotic pressure in the tissue fluid. So, and then you have to also take note that there's two end. Atrial end, so darah yang baru masuk, okay, dia akan masuk melalui atrial end of the blood capillaries. So obviously, when the blood flows in this region, okay, at the atrial end, obviously the blood pressure is high, which is about 35 millimeter mercury. This blood pressure at the atrial end is higher compared to the osmotic pressure in the tissue fluid, which is 25. Okay, so the high blood pressure in the blood capillaries causes fluid from the plasma, okay, fluid from the blood plasma in the blood capillaries to flow out of the capillary. So as you know, the feature of blood capillaries, it is porous, it has pores. So the fluid can, and it is also one-celtic. The blood capillaries is also one-celtic. So this causes the fluid, okay, or the water from the capillaries, okay, from the plasma in the capillaries to flow out of the blood into the tissue fluid. It becomes part of the tissue fluid or the interstitial fluid. Okay, so that is what happened at the atrial end. So you also have to observe what happened at the venule end. Okay, venule end, where the osmotic pressure is higher compared to the blood pressure. Osmotic pressure is maintained 25 all the way, kan, daripada sepanjang-panjang tissue fluid tu, osmotic pressure is maintained at 25. Okay, but the blood pressure at the venule end is lower, which is 18. So 25 versus 18, obviously osmotic pressure is higher compared to the blood pressure at the venule end. So this interstitial fluid will enter back into the blood capillaries at the venule end. Okay, so that is how tissue fluid is formed. Okay, so explain how tissue fluid is formed is like that. You have to compare. Okay, you have to compare the two pressure, the blood pressure and also the osmotic pressure at the atrial end and also at the venule end, okay, of the blood capillaries. Okay, so next, state. Okay, the last question, state one reason why the blood pressure falls from the atrial end of the capillaries to the venule end of the capillary. Kenapa blood pressure, kan, asalnya bila dia masuk dalam blood capillaries at atrial end, the pressure is high. But as the blood flows along the capillaries to the venule ends, you observe that the pressure will drop from 35 to 18. Why? Because due to the loss of fluid from capillary to the surrounding tissue. Okay, so that's the end of the discussion for part B for chapter 6. Okay, so I hope that you understand. So thank you.